adepts, occultists, alchemists, magi, celestial shamans, shamanesses, healers, and everything in between. Welcome to the God Hour Podcast. This is season 4, episode 1. Today we're going to be getting into intimacy, or intimacy. The journey to the inner child. This week's session, we're going to get into the love I lost, the inner voice, and the potential. But before we get into that, I wanted to bring a couple things to the surface. Of course, we still got the God Thought, we still got the weekly reading, but from here, stay tuned for the more live aspect of the God Hour Podcast, where we still gonna drop the stream every Tuesday at 6 a.m. But we're gonna do something special with interviews, live more interactive. I want to be more interactive. But yeah, all we doing is growing. And in order to grow, that journey must be taken. Few are gonna make it. Even fewer are gonna accept the call. And even fewer are gonna step through that darkness into that potential. Remember, today's the only day that matters. You are the only one that matters. Everything from this point is a reflection to be observed or experienced. Welcome to the God Hour. Let's get into this. Let's get into this God Thought, shall we? The journey to the inner child. Let me first by apologizing to you, my child. You are only acting out of the scars of what you knew. I am in this space to tell you today that I take the reins of responsibility of healing those wounds with being honest and open to our needs to heal, learn, and grow. I ask just one thing of you, to trust as hard as it will be at times, this journey into me, I will see will bring. In reality, for the inner child, you are every age you have ever been all at once. Remember, the past, the present, and the future all correspond at the same time. Meaning at any time you are carrying the wisdom of your older self with the innocence of your child self. Many people who have experienced childhood trauma, neglect, have wounds that were sealed in deep within their being as they grew older. Even for those who haven't experienced child neglect or trauma, there could have been negative experiences or things that you said or that was said to you that have stuck with you throughout the years. And today, this is what we're going to be getting into when I think about the love I lost, the listening to the inner voice, the true potential. The past, the present, and the future are all correspond with each other at this moment in time. So, to heal the past shapes the present, and it opens up the true potential of the future. But before we get into that, we're going to get into this weekly spread, Healing the Inner Child, here on the God Hour Podcast. I just want to say I love you. We love us. Ashe. That's your inner child knocking. You know, Papa Lucifer had to give you that reading. This is a very in-depth spread. It's a 7-card spread. It's a healing the inner child spread. I am offering this spread via inbox and DM only for right now. Via my Instagram, which is Papa_Lucy666, or rock calling me just to Facebook, inbox me, DM me, or you can hit the number 910-777-7708. What's the best thing to give yourself this to end out your season by starting by healing yourself? The inner child healing. Get these cards shuffled up. The inner child healing spread gives us the insights of how your inner child is feeling right now at this current moment. What you lacked as a child, what you were lacking in your childhood, what you didn't receive. Something that left you scarred, something or some things that left you scarred. How it's affecting you now. Something you can do to heal your inner child. How can you support the growth of your inner child? And a message from your inner child right here at this moment. From the reading, and we book the consultation, and we get you into that healing aspect. But today we're going to let the Three of Swords tell us how we're feeling right now with our inner child. We're going to allow the Three of Pentacles to bring us into what we lacked as a child. We're going to use our Two of Pentacles to give us the aspects of something that's left us scarred. We're going to let the Ace of Pentacles tell us how it's affecting us now. Get that something from the Nine of Pentacles. Get the how we gonna help our inner child from that fortitude. And how we gonna get into the message that our inner child is giving us through the Princess or the Page of Pentacles. Let's get into this. The Three of Swords represents internal heartbreak, emotional pain, sorrow and grief, and hurt. Your inner child is feeling deeply hurt and disappointed. The words and the actions of your heart being pierced by these blades have left intense scars of deep emotional pain. He or she wants and is in dire need to let all this out and move on. This is from a deeply rooted space covered over and over again by scar tissue of not allowing yourself to experience the emotion, but rather react, reflect, and project through those unhealed feelings. This leads us into the Three of Pentacles. Because of the lacking of the healthy bonds, in that positively cultivated space, you may have lacked this mostly as a child. Healthy bonding with a mother and or father archetype in your life. This gives you the inability to cultivate the healthy habits in terms of your growth. The Three of Pentacles represents those checking in on those bonds, checking in on that, cultivating that space. How were you cultivated? The Three of Pentacles represents the aspects also of the initial stages. Remember, the past, the present, and the future are all in play at the same time. This is meaning a lack of the past, from the past creates an ongoing longing and needing in the present and augments the views of the future. Your awareness of all that right there, your awareness of all that is going to determine is going to be determined by the evaluation and the understanding of your past. What did you lack? This is one of the biggest questions, because this question will be answered in the aspects of in seeing right now and what you long for now. That protection, that stability, that love, that nurturing, your collaborations in this present moment, negative or positive, and that's the most important part, negative or positive, are the reflections, or rather the projections, of the glamours you use to see this world through. It's one of the biggest things when we're looking at ourselves, when we start doing this, looking at that inner monologue and getting to that inner voice. Looking at understanding the love of ourselves through that love, that inner voice. It goes into the Two of Pentacles. The Two of Pentacles represents the aspects of multiple priorities, time management, prioritization, and adaptability. So when we're looking at how has this left you scarred, just think about the inner evaluation will lead you to these things that left that very inner child scarred. Running, being nurtured, taught, and protected, etc., is a priority for the inner child. The inner child, through the Two of Pentacles, shows how the scars reflect of how you now are moving in everyday life. The what that is the most detrimental to the need to stay in multiple priorities. If you're running around, you think that you need to have all these multiple priorities and multifaceted and bring yourself to this space, where is it coming from? A lot of us think that as long as we're always on the move and we're keeping ourselves in all these multiple priorities and trying to keep this thing up, but what we're doing is like we're not able to tap into the inner child for that inner reflection. That's needing to stay. You never seemingly seem to be able to manage and prioritize the time for yourself. That's the most important part when it comes to this healing process, is taking that time for yourself, setting those boundaries for the healing of yourself. Most important part. When you do this, instead of taking the time for yourself, you usually pick up the unhealthy habits with the inability to break the very cycles that have you not being able to manage your time, not being able to learn how to multi-layer. Remember, I was talking about multi-layering rather than multi-tasking. This is because of those fears of failure, the never being enough for yourself, and this is going to challenge you to never really get to the root of that point of that problem created by those very scars. This leads us to the Ace of Pentacles. The Ace of Pentacles represents the new money, or career, the opportunity, manifestation, and abundance. In reality, how is this affecting this when we're thinking about how it's affecting those things through the Ace of Pentacles? This whole spread was Pentacles, so you know it's all about energy. This is all about cultivating that energy, cultivating that finance, cultivating that energy, getting yourself into that order. The scars of the past make it harder for you to, when it comes to taking on the new opportunities. Because those scars, you never seem to be able to embrace the full spectrum. The doubt and the inadequacy are leaving you feeling insecure when it comes to developing your true abundance and your manifestation. You can't tap in and you can't imagine it. The green lights only look red through those rose-colored glasses that you have on to block the rays of opportunity, because here's the thing. To be open in any way naturally exposes the part of you you're wishing to keep hidden. It's time to break that cycle. When it comes to this space for us, when I remember just thinking about myself, and there were so many opportunities that I had. There were so many opportunities to travel. There were so many opportunities to expand my careers and expand myself in those spaces. And not even being into my purpose, but those can lead me into my purpose. When we think about these opportunities that we're coming into, everything, remember, is that reflection to experience, to observe, and for me to be able to grow. So when we're thinking about these new opportunities, we'll shut ourselves down because we'll be blinded just by the fear of not opening, because it's going to open up something that needs to come out. It's time to break that cycle. This leads into that Nine of Pentacles. The Nine of Pentacles represents abundance, it represents luxury, it represents self-sufficiency, it represents financial independence. This is something that you can do. This is the things that we're going to have to start doing to heal our inner child. Working on your internal worth and abundance. That self-sufficiency is the act of being in a space, in this case, no longer dependent on the attention that you got from being what? That individualization of in your worth through reflection of you being broken. You gotta stop doing that. A A lot of us like to use our trauma as this trump card, so we don't have to take responsibility. So if I fuck up, if I do something that I wasn't supposed to do, if I'm hurt, or if I hurt somebody, I can always go back to my mom didn't love me, my father didn't love me, my father loved me too much, my mother loved me too much. They didn't protect me from my uncle. They didn't protect me from these people. So we now go through that narrative. It's time to stop that shit. It's a time, this is going to be that time to indulge and pamper yourself in the healthy, intimate ways. We're going to get deep into that today. The way what you lack and the scars made you feel like the inner child always needs attention. It's time to embrace and sit with your inner child. Take it on, I'm gonna call it the play day. Take yourself on that play day. Let them know and help them understand. I'm talking to yourself. Let yourself know and understand that those scars are only the stripes of the tiger. This is when we think about the mother goddess, the Durga, the mother goddess, when she rides in on that tiger. Using that, take that aspect that you're using that invoking to talk to your inner child. It's one of the invoking techniques that I use during a session for a client during that. It's time to indulge in healing, to open up to that love you intimately need. Define it in the ways to only help you grow. That's one of the biggest things. This is going to lead us to how you're going to help your inner child. You're going to help it through the fortitude or the strength card by demonstrating strength, demonstrating courage, demonstrating influence through compassion. By forgiving, we open up to the understanding and the growing in the compassion. The strength card represents inner strength, which you and your inner child need and will so appreciate once you cultivate it into the healing process. The urges that once are fed, and we're going to get deep into that this week, the urges that you fed based on the love, not listening to the inner child, and attaching to others, putting the glamour of potential on others so you can see through them. Those are the things that are going to be coming to the surface very hard. They're going to be tested very, 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 very hard in this placement. The power to move forward and walk away from that broken mirror. It's time to walk away from that broken mirror and stop asking that mirror on the wall, who's the most broken of them all? Of course, you're going to look in there, the mirror ain't got to say nothing to you, but you're going to use that inner broken child and look through that broken mirror and be like, yeah, I'm the most broken of them all. This leads to the message from the inner child. The message of the inner child comes through the Princess of Pentacles. Manifestation, financial opportunity, and skill development are only developed through the imagination. The imagination must be healed. We're going to get deep into that when we get into this aspect of the inner voice in this session. I want you to heal. I want you to become the best. The only way to become the best is that monologue with the inner child. Have that conversation with the inner child. Talk to the inner child. Deal with the inner child. If you need the assistance in talking to the inner child, holla at me. Papa Lucifer, Alkhemist, LLC.com. Talk to me. We can sit down. We can build that space. Whether it's in person, I'm willing to travel. We'll do a special pricing for travel if you're not local to where I'm at, or we can do it via the Zoom, build it via there. All that matters is that you get into your healing process. This has been your weekly reading. If it resonates with you, let's get into this work. After this break, we'll get into the God Hour. Welcome to the God Hour. I love you. You love us. I love you. You feel like you got a voice, feel like you got something to say? Feel like you have something that can move the masses or get everybody tuned in and you want a bigger audience? Whether it can be anything from something like the God Hour or anything from like sports, news, fashion week, whatever it may be. Let me put you on to something. The easiest way to do it is with the Anchor app. Biggest thing about it is free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will even do all of the distribution for your podcast for you so it can be heard on many other platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
You can make money. You also can make money from your podcast with a minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. It's everything you need to get your voice heard and get what you feel that's in your heart and enter to your heart out to the masses. If you're interested, download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started.
Welcome. Season 4, episode 1 of season 4. I wanted to end it out the way I came in this year. So this is season 4, episode 1. Stay tuned, we got more coming on the way. This is day 13. By the time y'all listen to this, I'll be on day 14 of my 20-day fast. It's been a journey. It's been a journey on multiple levels. This fast is actually it represents a lot of my journey. It represents a lot of everything that I went through this year. It represents a lot of, this fast for me represents a lot of what's happened this year, what's been going on. Cutting away things, cutting cords, cutting tethers, healing those aspects, marrying yourself, understanding the aspects of execution. Are you just projecting or are you just like all these aspects? But today we're going to be getting into Me I See, the journey into the inner child, the intimacy. This first section, piece of our 3-part session, is the love I lost. Before we get deep into the love I lost, I found some information that I wanted to add into, and we're going to build upon it. You know, that's usually how we do it. We take this, it's about taking the information, the knowledge that you gather. Knowledge has no power not unless it is applied. Remember that. Knowledge has no power not unless it's applied. Knowledge has no power unless it's applied. The thing I wanted to pull out with the love loss is breaking down the different types of inner child wounds. There's four types. There's 4 sections. The first one is abandonment wounds. The second one is guilt wounds. The third one is trust wounds, and the fourth one is neglect wounds. In abandonment wounds, it's always this feels left out. When we think about being feel left out, I've heard it a lot of times. I've said it a lot of times, like, you don't want to miss anything. That's why you're always at that event. You don't want to miss anything. The fear of being left, this tunes into sometimes the fear of being left. You always try to be first. You always try to have this control over the situation for that fear of somebody leaving you where you were at. Hates being alone. This is a big one because when it comes into doing your healing process, elevation requires separation. Elevation is going to require a lot of separation. Separating away from a lot of those conduits that were in our life that played a certain role based upon that very trauma. Codependency. When we speak on codependency, it's a big topic. A lot of people don't understand the aspects of codependency. We're gonna get into this when we get into this. When we get into the aspects of emotional maturity. Threatening to leave every 15 seconds in every conversation that you in, every argument. It always ends with threatening to leave, threatening to end it, threatening to walk away, giving up so quickly. These are all bunch of abandonment wounds. Normally attracts an emotionally unavailable person. When we speak on the aspects of emotionally unavailable, this goes into, for me, to expound upon, somebody that is emotionally mature. When we talk about emotionally unavailable, the first thing that I've thought about that comes to my mind is somebody that cannot be emotionally swayed. So when people use that, like, when people think about that aspect of like normally attracting these emotionally available people, it goes from a level of people that have not learned their emotions yet. So you can be the emotional one in the, you remember, you naturally, unconsciously always look for a balance. So if you're over emotional and then somebody else is not showing, they're not wanting to show their emotions, then your emotions, now you project your emotions onto them. And vice versa. That's all in them abandonment issues. Let's get to that guilt wound. Feel sorry or bad. If you've ever heard somebody always apologizing for things that they're always doing, they're always saying sorry, they're always feeling guilty, they're always feeling bad, they're always feeling in this state to where they can never just accept, because it's going back to those abandonment wounds of they're used to being around those emotionally unavailable people. This goes into doesn't like to ask for things. This was a big one for me. I didn't like asking people for things. And then to counterbalance it, the way I would ask for things when it was like too late. Like if it was like, let's say, for example, I'll go back to a day when I was younger. And I remember like when I was little, I never could ask my pops for anything. I felt like I never could ask my pops any questions because I knew it was going to be this long conversation that was going to fall off the track of whatever we were talking about. And that was one of the big things I had to figure out before I started going into lectures and going into my practice. But I felt bad for that. You feel me? I always went back to feeling sorry, feeling bad, not asking for anything. And then in that reflection, I will always expect people to ask me for everything. We don't get deeper into this. Uses guilt to manipulate. This is when we were talking about last week, the other week, when we were talking about wounded illusion, when people are submitting to manipulate. So you'll use your trauma like, I was hurt, I was put in a bad position, this happened when I was little, my parents neglected me. And now you use this as an aspect, you project through this that in order for somebody to love you, in order for somebody to deal with you, in order for somebody to care for you, to give you attention, they got to give it to you through this aspect of manipulation. And the last guilt wound is normally attracts people who make them feel guilty. This is a big one. And we're going to get deeper into that one. I like that part. Then there's the trust wound. Is afraid to be hurt, doesn't trust themselves, finds ways not to trust people, feels insecure and needs a lot of external validation, doesn't feel safe, normally attracts people who don't feel safe. When it comes to the afraid to be hurt, it's this building aspect to ourselves of when you stream into when they don't trust themselves, it's an aspect of you always need validation, even in the most simplest of measures. It's a difference between asking your man, how do you look in this? Or asking your girl, like, is my haircut nice? Or whatever it is. And then it's another aspect of you're depending on others. Remember, we talked about this being selfless. Since you are selfless, you have not identified yourself. You are now selfless. You are depending on others' perceptions and perspectives of you to create the body that you live in. This goes into feeling always finds those ways not to trust people. It's easy not to trust people in understanding that first, you don't trust yourself. The only way I can't trust an individual is if I don't trust myself. And it gets deeper because now that I trust myself, I'm able to, this is when you come into emotional maturity. Now that I trust myself, I'm able to reflect and become more self-aware of the environment I'm in, and why these people are why they're at that certain way, why I can't trust them. I'm not looking for people I don't have to trust. Everybody around me I can trust. Everybody around me I can trust to a certain point. In this point of this, my mindset whenever I'm thinking about trust is on business. If I can't trust you with money, put it this way, if I can't trust you with the build of a business, then you go into an associate's position. This goes into the aspects of when we're talking about loving ourselves. We don't go deeper into this. I want to get all this out there first. Doesn't feel safe, and it normally attracts people who don't feel safe. When you don't feel safe, you always look for reasons not to feel safe. So when you go into the aspects of the guilt wound, you always manipulate the situation. This is how these connect. This is one way how these connect. So you'll always use a constant sense of guilt to manipulate, feeling that you don't feel safe. I don't feel safe alone. I don't feel safe going there. I don't feel safe going there. But then in the manipulation aspect, you haven't realized why you don't feel safe in the first place with yourself. This is where you become needing that validation from others. You need that constant attention from others. You need somebody to set those. You need somebody to set those tones for you. This goes into the neglect wound. Struggles to let things go, has low self-worth, gets angry really easily, struggles to say no, represses emotions, fears being vulnerable, normally attracts people who don't appreciate them or make them feel seen. Now, this goes both ways. When you think about the aspects of somebody not wanting to be seen. When you think about the neglect wound and me saying that, now we're going to get into this episode. Let me get myself resituated, kicking the microphone around and all this good stuff. But you're putting yourself in this space when it comes to loving yourself. The love that you lost. The love that you lost is something that you're constantly trying to find. And now that this environment's been created for you, based on the illusion, based on the memories, and you naturally want to create. If you are in those inner child wounds, just similar to this one we were talking about the masculine and the feminine aspects. These are actually the parents of the wounded masculine and the wounded feminine. Yeah, these are the inner child wounds are the parented or the parent or the set points for the wounded masculine and the wounded feminine. If you ever heard when somebody says it's easier to raise a healthy child than to heal a wounded adult. This is what that is. Because remember, your past, your present, and your future, they're all in alignment with each other. They're all playing out at the same exact time. So those wounds of your childhood now create the wounds or the scars that you lived through in your present state. So if I look at the aspect of, let's go into abandonment wounds. Feels left out, fears being left, hates being alone, and the codependency. When we think about this aspect, let's think about this. Let's go into the wounded masculine aspects. Let's go into the wounded masculine aspects. I got the notes over here with me. Let's go into the wounded man. The wounded man is in the aspects of the perpetrator, abusive power, dominance, aggression, control, competitive, confrontational, can't accept criticism, prone to being abused or abuse, unsupportive and unstable. So when we think about the abandonment wounds, feeling left out, when you have when you're abusing your power, when most people are abusing their power in that space to feel not to be left out, think about you always trying to be in every situation and you're trying to be in every situation and have control or input in every single situation. Remember, you don't have to react to everything. You have to learn how to respond by being more aware and being able to use that reflection. But for a lot of people, I'm gonna go to me. When I remember for myself, it was when I was at my jobs earlier on, up until my last job, until I learned how to step back. I remember always trying to be in every position. I remember being the best cook online. I remember being the best cook, the best key holder, the best in the position. Like, I could run a line by myself. I could do multiple things at once. I could do all of these things. But it was my fear. What I realized now for myself was, I always said to myself, I was always looking for a reason not to trust people, because I would always say things like, and we've said things like this, if I don't do it, I can't trust it to get done. Just think about it. You said it all the time unconsciously. If I'm not doing it, I can't trust it to be done. Think of how dominant or how much you would abuse that. And you going into positions where now you don't ask for things because you have a fear that if you're not doing it, then you're going to somehow feel neglected. Your self-esteem is built on the external aspects of yourself. And this is one of the big things that this happens, especially in our community. One of the biggest things that happens is you come from those struggle beginnings, those oppressive beginnings, these neglecting beginnings. And now you're sitting in a position where you feel like you have to do everything yourself. And when you get tired, that's when your inner child cries out. I want y'all to understand this when we go into the love of yourself. You cannot wait until you have to become more aware, rather. You got to become more aware of that when you're yelling out, when you're calling out and you're yelling and you're screaming to the top of your lungs that you should do this and you should do that and this should be done and this should be done. You need to check yourself. Real shit, check yourself. Because it's coming from a space your inner child is yelling. What is your inner child saying? Because you put yourself in that position based on the lack of the value that you have in yourself. And I'm going to tell you how you did it by the lack of the value of yourself. Here's one main question that I ask all of my clients. Who are you? Outside of the mother, outside of the sister, outside of the brother, outside of the father, outside of the daughter, outside of the daughter, outside of the uncle, outside of the external titles that you use to define you. This takes me into an aspect of thinking. I don't respect people just because you have that title. You have to show me why that definition of that title, every title that you take on, it only accentuates or enhances what you already are. Me being a god only accentuates and exemplifies my ability to be the generator, be the operator, be the destroyer, be the dissector, be the developer in my life. So in my life as me, the value in myself, the impact of the value in myself, that love for myself is reflected through me being a god, me being a king, me being a king, an alchemist, an occultist, me being all of these things. It exemplifies or it enhances what I already am. Without that title, I'm still going to be me. This is how you break away from the attachment. I'm connected to being a god. So I'm connected to the God level energies. I'm connected in the interface with God level energy, goddess level energy. God is a neuter noun, meaning it can be for both. God and goddess energy. I am connected to the chaos of myself, because my soul is pure fire, pure chaos. So I'm connected to that, interfacing with that energy. This is when we start taking these aspects, removing these definitions, because how you got your definition is only based upon the external aspects of how that was once defined. So you're only in love with the definition because it gives you power. It gives you a false state of power. So you never have to work on your emotions. So let's start peeling these things back. Think about when your mother used to be like, you'll get it when you're grown, you're understanding when you're grown, and your father was doing this, your father didn't do that, or whatever it may be. And then they kept saying you were going to be grown when you get grown, when you get grown. You never were taught the aspect of love. And for the ones that were taught the aspect of love, this is going to be a lot deeper for you, because you have to start looking back at the times that you said something negative to yourself, or when you got too much of something. Yeah, it gets very fucking deep, because a lot of us think that the ones that came from these beautiful childhoods. There's an episode of House. I love the show House. There's an episode of House. It's season 8, it's like the last season, and it's when he pulled an old girl that got fired from the jail when he was in prison. And she came to work for him, and she ran away from home because her home was too good. So she wanted to experience the bad. This makes you really start thinking. This goes into the aspects of that the good girls going for the bad boy type, and the good boys going for the bad girl type, and you going for these types that you've chosen. These types that you've chosen are for a reason. It's for that observation. It's for that lack of the love, or the lack of what you thought was actually love was actually a predetermined definition based on that where you was at in that time. This is where it gets. This is that deep part of understanding the love of yourself. Now that I have this love for myself, I'm always in the best state of being, best state of mind. Even if something irritates me, I am thankful for that irritation. I'm thankful for the betrayal, the irritation, the lie, the act that happens, because it gives me a chance to be self-evaluate, test myself, my awareness, and continue strengthening my boundaries. Without those negative aspects, I don't know if my boundaries work. I cut myself yesterday to see if I still bleed. Take that aspect, take that thought process in your mind. I cut myself the other day to see if I still bleed. These become these aspects when you're coming into the love of yourself. But you have to start peeling back these layers. A lot of us are in trauma-like positions right now that have not healed from these traumas. So now we have conduits that are in our lives, whether it be that boyfriend, that girlfriend, that group of that circle, that clique of friends, that the way you act when you go, how you act while you're at work, when you get off work, based on that need for that attention, based on that fear of abandonment, based on that aspect of guilt. You ain't saying no when you should say no. Think about how many times you getting in these relationships for a fear of rejection. I remember getting in relationships and it was based on a fear of rejection. It was there. I was there. It showed interest. I accepted it. Now, do not get me wrong in the aspect of myself. Do not get me wrong in the aspect for me, because I learned from every single one of my relationships. I have love for every single one of my I have love for every one of my exes. I have love for all my exes. I have love for everybody that's gone and came into my life. But the aptitude or the trajectory point from the setting of how I apply my love is now different based on the love of myself. I don't have guilt for saying no. There's not this aspect of guilt for me saying no to something. There's not this aspect of like, nah, I'm not doing that. That doesn't exist for me anymore. Rather, the position that I'm in now, the position that my mindset is in now is building and growing, grooming and supporting with no ulterior motive. When you're stuck in that guilt, especially in that wounded aspect, in the wounded or the guilt aspect, and now you're trying to guilt trip people, damn it, the hell, I'm trying to press too many buttons at once. When you're trying to guilt trip people and manipulate them, it's usually that always too late function. I remember for myself where I would be going through things and I would get upset when people didn't ask me. So I would use the guilt that I felt for myself of not asking, and I would flip it on other individuals. So now I'm sitting in a position where I'm using my guilt like, yo, you didn't do this for me. You should have did this. I shouldn't have to ask for this, this, and this, because I had this false sense of perception of what the relationships were. Girlfriends, homies, whatever it may be. I had that false sense. So I would sit there literally in a quiet state to myself, waiting for them to ask me what was wrong. And then I would literally say nothing was wrong, I'm fine. And then I remember being in relationships and I would be around the feminine archetype of the energy and they be acting this out. Nothing wrong, I'm fine, it's okay. In order for you to fucking heal, to bring yourself into that space so you're okay, you got to admit what is breaking you. You have to be able to admit what's breaking you. You have to be able to start that process of admitting that this is what broke me. This is what hurt me. You have to do this to be able to release, to be able to get to the initial hurt. Because if you don't get to that initial hurt, guess what happens? You never heal. You're always going to find external aspects you're going to try to do this Hail Mary effect to keep everything in your life the way that it is. And just keep building on top of the pain. So now you're going to go through the most painful measures, not understanding that the pain is a part of the process, not accepting the pain as a part of the process, because you're not processing through the pain. This is what happens when most people, like, instead of you sitting down with yourself and having a conversation with yourself and really dealing with the pain, now you go mask the pain. When most people doing this, when most doing this individual state to cover or mask, they mask the pain in this aspect of feeling this need of lust for themselves. So they need the attention based on the physical, because the physical is simply the surface. Remember, the physical is the surface, the emotional is the undercurrent. You got to get through the physical, and that you got to get through the physical, which is the aspect of the physical manifestation or the symbol. The emotion is the repetition, because it's always moving in emotion. And then the trauma is deeply rooted within that shadow. That's within the subconscious. So you got trauma, symbolism, trauma, repetition. So now everything in your life symbolizes something that's based upon the trauma, that's based upon you repeating it to stay within that space. Think about how you live out your life. You live your life on the run. You live your life on the run. You never sitting still. You feel like you can't sit still because you can't trust anybody. Listen to it. You can't trust anybody. So now, since you can't trust anybody, you usually are going to attract people that you can't trust, just so you can keep the narrative of what you can't trust. It gets so much deeper. It's because you're not listening to yourself. You can't find the love that you lost if you're not listening to the one that lost the love, the one that knows how to find the love. You have to listen to the inner child, that inner voice. That's who's going to teach you about, the aspects of what do I really love? Who am I outside of this? Why do I need this type of attention? Why do I call for this? Why do I yell for this? Why am I in this position at all times? Why am I always tired? All of these things are built up in that space of you understanding and letting that inner voice get loud. Instead of allowing that inner voice to get loud only when you're in the most extreme of an emotional imbalance. You angry as fuck, now you want to yell. You want the inner child you'll let the inner child loose. You want to feel love, so now you let the inner child loose. Stop letting the inner child loose when it's convenient and start learning how to work with your inner child. But we don't keep getting deeper into this. Welcome to the God Hour. Y'all all right out there? All right, we back. Now that we in this aspect of thinking about the love that we lost. When you think about the love that was lost, as I readjust my microphone, I have to take a sip of my water. Thinking about the aspects of the love that was lost, in order to understand this, to come to this point of stop what we usually try to do when we're listening, that inner voice, we allow this inner voice to scream out and project through the aspects of emotion and anger. So it's only when you super upset, it's only when you super mad, it's only when you're in an emotional imbalance that you allow the inner child to speak. This is a very dangerous aspect because when you start thinking about it, it's like, think about how many conversations that you've had and why you're yelling. Was it because of that neglect of not being listened to when you were little? That's one of those spaces. Because this naturally grows out of our entirety in our space, in our escape. Every relationship that you in, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a partnership, whether it's a friendship, love, interest, job, the way that you're acting, I remember when somebody would be like, don't treat me like a child. And this will always be at my jobs when I be managing. They're like, don't treat me like a child. I'm grown. I'm grown just like you. I be like, you may be older than me. This is one of the biggest things I deal with, always being the youngest. You may be older than me, but you're definitely not grown. What you mean I ain't definitely not grown? I pay my bills. Then they go on speaking these things that are on external. But when it came to the aspects of this, when we get into emotional maturity and mental maturity, you can pay every bill on time. You can pay all your bills. You dig? You can go out and spend late nights in the clubs and whatever. You dig? You can do all that shit. That don't make you grown. That don't make you an adult at all. That don't make you emotionally mature at all. That don't make you mentally mature. Because a mentally mature person at a certain point in time, this is just for me on that aspect, for me thinking about it. For me now, even if clubs were not closed down or whatever, what's the point of me going to a club? Now, at this point in time. Other than to go shoot pool, but I know a couple pool halls. But other than that, why would I go to a club? So I can listen to music? I got a TV hanging on the wall right now that I can listen to Spotify all fucking day. I got apps from my phone to my laptop that I can plug into my Bluetooth speakers and listen to music all night. And never have to worry about anybody or anything shutting it down or telling me I drank too much or whatever, if I was drinking like that I drank too much or whatever it is. I have power over my environment. See, the inner child, when it comes to this aspect of you wanting to fit in and wanting to never be left out and never feeling safe, the inner child doesn't feel safe. So when you think about never feeling safe, the inner child doesn't feel safe. So now you don't trust people. So now you create environments where you now either create that, you either expound and create external environments to where you can go and be like, that's why I don't trust people. Or you bring people into your space that you don't trust. You ain't got no reason to trust them other than what? And then you sitting there mad because you already gave them something, and now you feel that just because and this is how that manipulation through guilt work on masculine and feminine. Some people actually think them with emotional immaturity, through the aspects of emotional immaturity, guilt with manipulation, will use the physical aspects of sex as a physical barter system. my mind you got to get into this mind of mine. You feel me? You got to show me you got mental maturity. That's for anybody to deal with me. You got to have some type of emotional maturity to yourself, because I am very direct to the point. I am very like, I will roast you. I will throw shots. So if you can't handle them shots, if you got to take, man, it's fucked up, because all I'm doing is triggering shit inside of you anyway. I did that before I even realized that I was a healer before I was a healer. But that's what I used to do. I used to be in that position, like, I'll shoot at your ass. And it'd be fun, because it gave me the skin that I needed in order to do the work that I needed to do. It's all part of the process. But when we think about this space and creating this space for ourselves, for our inner child to be able to play, this environment for our child to be able to play, this environment for our child to be able to learn, for our inner child to be able to flourish, for our inner child to understand that it's love, to understand that it's I want to understand you, and bringing this space and that forgiveness. This is where you get in that elevation based on the separation. Listening to that inner dialogue. What do you want to say? What is your child saying to you? What aspect is speaking to you? And then as it's speaking to you, how are you dealing with what it's saying? Because your child is basically, whatever your child is saying, the inner child is saying that it's hungry. It's saying that it's hungry. So if it's speaking from a broken aspect, and let's say it's from an emotional aspect, based on attention, and it's hungry for attention. Now that you're an adult, what do you think you're going to get hungry for attention with? This is where those urges come into question. This is where the urges that you have to deal with come in. Because you've gotten so used to getting it a certain way based on the attention that you got. Not saying all strippers, but some strippers. Not saying all OnlyFans girls, but some OnlyFans girls. Not saying all IG models, but I'm saying some IG models. Not saying some people going for likes and whatever, but I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying some of them. And it's just not it's just not about what the fuck you. It's just not simply, you can sit here, someone can be like, I don't post pictures of myself on Facebook. I don't post pictures like that on there. That is you judgmental. So in that space, you being judgmental of somebody else, but how else are you doing it? I've watched people put their entire life on Facebook. They put the beginning of the relationship, they put the breakup up there, they put all this business out there, lack of boundaries for themselves, and then they say stupid shit like, I love too hard. How the fuck do you love too hard? If love is the ultimate frequency, how can you do it too hard? What you're doing is since you're not listening to that inner voice, you're loving with an undisciplined narrative. So in the beginning of every relationship, you're giving all of this game out. You're giving everything out. Not being open and honest in conversations. You're giving everything out based onto a physical sense. So now you sitting there within a week and a half, you ready to have sex with this dude. Or a week and a half, you ready to have sex with this chick. Why? Because that's the best you have to offer. You feel like if I give them this, and you can dress it up any way you want. Man, I give you these bomb ass strokes, he's stuck. Man, I give him this wet ass, see, he's stuck. All right. So now you just added a spark to the brother that's giving these strokes to unhealed women. Now when you go in that space, everything that was tied to you is now intertwined with hers and her imbalances. And now y'all come together, and guess what y'all create? A space of imbalance. Y'all create an entire space of imbalance. So now he can go to his dudes and be like, yeah, chicks, shit, niggas ain't, women ain't shit. and you can go to your girls and say niggas ain't shit. Instead of looking at it from the balance of the things that I've received in this moment of time, I'm grateful for. You ungrateful. Your inner child is spoiled on getting things a certain way. So of course, this is you being ungrateful. So the next time you call somebody ungrateful, look at yourself. How are you being ungrateful to yourself? Based on your self-care, based on your listening to yourself, based on you disciplining yourself, based on you loving yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, you don't have the discipline to give you. You don't have the discipline to put the boundaries up for the love that you're giving to others. Now you sitting in a position upset, mad, because now you met somebody that's emotionally mature, is not going to listen to that shit with you. Or now, for fear of opening up, you'll stay with that. Your emotional immaturity with yourself is reflected in the relationship you're in right now. So now both of y'all are emotionally immature in that space. This person ain't learned how to deal with their emotions. You ain't learned how to deal with your emotions. And if this person has learned how to deal with their emotions, you're not open enough to take the understanding of what they've learned. Why? Because you ain't willing to go that deep into yourself to unlock that trauma. What happened to you when you were little? You got to be honest with yourself. Who were you before the trauma? What were you before the trauma? Who were you? What were you aspiring to be before the trauma? The answer is you were aspiring to be a God. This is if you're going through the healing process, coming into your awakening spiritually. The ultimate goal is to go back to your God self. So that's your aspiration. But a dog cannot be a man. A dog can't be a human because it has the brain of a dog. An ant can't be an anteater because it has the brain of an ant. A spider can't be a bird because it has the mind of a spider. And so on and so forth. We can say that all fucking day. You can't be, in order to get something, you must be the reflection or the conduit of it. That's the aspect of you listening to yourself. Really listen to yourself. If you looked at everything that you said that you required or that you wanted from somebody, ask yourself, how much of that stuff do you have to yourself? And I'm not talking about physical aspects. Remember, we ain't talking about money when we talk about security and stability. Money is secondary. The physical aspects are secondary. Those are physical manifestations. They're going to manifest based on what you're already thinking. So just thinking about that aspect. Think about the conversation you have with yourself. If you walking around saying niggas ain't shit and bitches ain't shit and these niggas is clowns and this nigga ain't on my level and this and this, what level are you on? Ask yourself what level you're on. Ask yourself where you're at in your process of growth. Because saying that you're grown is not going to get you anywhere. I'm grown. I went to school. I did this. I got my certification. I know what I'm talking about. Okay, cool. I'm a whole occult psychologist. I do healing for a living. This is what I do. But I be damned if I'm not going to sit here, even if I read one of my favorite books is Revolutionary Psychology by Samuel Onward, or Samael. And in the Carl Jung books, I be damned I'm not going to sit back and go back and read it again. Because every time I read it, I'm going to find something different. Because every time I read it, when you're reading, you're listening. Because when you're thinking, you're listening. You're revamping what you get to listen to. So if I go back and look at a book after I have a different insight, when my inner voice speaks, when my child speaks, looking like Harry Potter with locks, that's what my inner child looks like. He looks like Harry Potter with locks. He got a little lightning. He got my sigils on his forehead. Like, if you watch Dragon Ball Z, if you didn't, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. That's neither here nor there. But if you remember that episode when everybody was getting that mark, that mark on their head, like Vegeta had that mark on his head, that's what my inner child has my sigil marked on his head. So all my energy is pulled, all my energy of imagination is pulled from my inner child, because my inner child is fully unlocked. I unlock all the extras and everything in the damn game for my inner child to be able to play. That's the spectrum. That's the spectrum energy you're pulling from. But when you're inside of a space where you're constantly trying to do things, to do something, to make something sustain, are you doing it based on the internal work, or are you doing it to run away? There's a lot of us that are running away right now. So instead of doing the work, we find other things outside of us to do to take our mind off doing the work that we need to do. But this is how it transmutes. The same trauma that got you running is going to make you run away from everything that you say you want to listen to with your heart. I ran away from stepping to the next level with a lot of things in my life. Ran away. Because I didn't have the information. And I was afraid that in order for me to get the information, I unconsciously knew that I had to open up. So if I got to open up this book, that means I got to open up myself. Every book that you open, you're opening up yourself. This is why it's hard for some of y'all to read. It's hard for you to read to yourself. It's hard to read to yourself because you got to open yourself up. And opening yourself up creates that space. It opens up that space to where now you must alone travel. So now, since you're afraid to be alone to travel, how are you going to take the journey to your inner child and listen to your inner child if you're afraid to be alone? You're afraid to be to yourself. You're afraid to be like, you know what? I got to cut these ties, count up these. I got to cut these ties, count up these losses, and I got to go forward. It hurts like a motherfucker. It fucks with your head. It makes you upset. It gets you worked up. It makes you doubt everything. But I can guarantee you, as long as you keep doing it, you don't keep running in the arms of everybody. You don't keep running into their arms and in between the legs and in the doors and in the spaces that don't feed you. Even down to the friendships that you have. Two inner children battling to listen to each other. That's why when you think about emotional maturity, you get to a point to where you just ain't deal. I'm just not going to deal with certain things. And now that I promoted as a service, best believe, if I got to keep going into a certain situation, I will charge you. That's the physical aspect. I will charge you. Ain't no discounts. I do energy work. So there won't be a discount. Now, when I say there won't be a discount, it's like there's a dependence into it. You feel me? Like, if you're doing the work, I might give you a kickback. Here's a rebate. Here's a reward. Here's a rebate. What's this for? This is the example of what it is when you do your work. The positive return comes back. But that inner child needs that positive feedback. That's what we wanted to get into. That inner child needs that positive feedback. Where do you find positive feedback? It's not going to be in those external aspects. I can look at the TV all day. It'll never tell me that I look good. It'll never tell me that I look good. I can go grab 9 cars, buy all the cars, go get all this other shit, But it's never, none of that shit's going to tell me that I look good at all. Yo, you riding clean. My car ain't going to tell me that shit. My crib ain't going to tell me that shit. Not based on the aspect of me not putting in the work first. This is when you get into the aspect of representation to your potential. I look around my space right now, in the space that I'm sitting in right now as I record the podcast. Over there to the left of me is the main altar in the crib. Across is another altar. Everything laid out. Sitting over here on the ground is my meditation area for when I do sessions, from doing readings to doing consultations to doing therapy sessions. Everything around me reflect me. The things that are around you, negative or positive, they all reflect you. They're all a reflection of that inner voice. All of them are reflections of your inner voice in some way, shape, or form. So the next time when you're reevaluating yourself, you got to be able to step back, and you can't have, this is when the elevation separation comes into, of really identifying yourself without that conduit. If I was an only child, that means for the aspect of, in order for me to do the healing work, I had to remove myself from being a brother, an uncle, and all these aspects. So I had to listen to myself as an only child. This helped me work with my inner child. Writing it a letter, letting it out to do what it needed to do. And in order for me to get deeper into my inner child, I had to see myself as not a son. I had to see myself as an orphan. This is a deep process. I had to see myself as an orphan. Because in reality, all of the trauma that I went through are things that you see in every orphan movie. Neglect, trauma, all of that shit happens to an orphan. So it takes me back, like, damn, I remember I used to call myself adopted all the time. Come to find out, I was adopted. That was my karmic family. Those are my karmic family that gave me insight to my karmic relationships. They gave me insight to all my karmic relationships, friendships, whatever, love interests and all that. That's what they showed me. So at a point in time, when I started cultivating myself and really working into myself and listening to me, those voices changed. They started turning into my voice. So I remember looking at the things that my pops would say, and I started saying them in my voice. It was only me saying it all along. The more that I said it to myself, the more information that I brought into that space and applied, the more I understood it. The more I understood it, the more I realized that I no longer needed my pops, or I no longer needed my father. I became my father. The more that I was having those conversations with my mother, and I was changing this into my voice, speaking these things, the less I realized that I didn't need my mother. I realized why I thought I needed my mother and why I kept my mother in the space that she was in. This becomes manipulation. I could have... Here's a deep reality. The things that I did for my mother were in reality for myself. The things that I did for my sisters and brothers was in reality for myself. The things that I did in relationships was in reality for myself. See, I was over selfish. I was selfish. I was over selfish. I wasn't balanced. I was ultimately selfless with the selfish intention. My intention was ruled by the lower aspects of selfishness, which is that manipulation aspect. So I depended on their perception of me in order for me to remain the selfless individual that I was, to remain the selfless human. So I can manipulate and guilt trip them, even how good I was. I remember sitting there in positions where instead of me telling the truth, instead of me telling the absolute truth, I would bend it to benefit me. Later on, my karmic debt and then I would get mad when something would happen, but then it'd just be my karmic debt coming up for me to pay it. And it always came up in a correspondence of when I needed something. Why? Because I was trapped in the need. This is what happens a lot of times for us when we're in that space and we're depending on individuals. And when you go into these spaces, when you start your healing process, this is the most important part. This is when you're monitoring your energy, because you can pick up something from somebody else that has not started the healing process, that you defined them to be a certain thing in your life. And when you come into your space, guess what you're going to start doing? Saying the same shit. You're going to start saying the same shit. Because your inner child needs answers. But the only way your inner child knows how to speak is to scream, because you ain't listening to it. So since you're not listening to it, you're going to try to force somebody else to listen to it. But with an emotionally mature, divine masculine such as myself, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm literally going to sit there and I'm going to observe. And as I'm observing, my observer is now going to put together the conversation for the return. I do this for a living. I do this for a living, and I'm very good at it. And that comes from the most humblest space. I'm very good at what I do. That's confidence in listening to my inner voice, because I've done that work. I cannot say that I'm great and still onward growing if I have not done the work. I will not, based on the love of myself, the love that I lost for myself that I'm never going to lose, I will not listen to unrational aspects of myself that are based on emotional impulses and reactions. This is a process when you get into that healing. When you start speaking these types of things to yourself, when you're speaking your affirmations out loud, I will not, followed by whatever it is you will no longer do. Then after that, you set that affirmation. Now you got to put in the work to match that level, that frequency that you just spoke. You're speaking that from the most highest aspect of yourself. This is how you start the healing process. It don't matter how much sage you grab. It don't matter how many crystals you want to wear. It don't matter how many candles you burn. It don't matter how many times you prick yourself. It don't matter it don't matter how much, down to how much weight you lose, what certifications you get. It don't matter what you get on this external. It don't matter how much money you win. It don't matter. Period. Because if you ain't listening to your inner self, you ain't getting into that journey, working into that inner self, you'll never get to your true potential. Why? Because you're too worried about maintaining the external. And that's what we're getting into in this next piece, in true potential. Thank you for choosing the God out. Y'all all right out there? Stay tuned after this break. I love you. Yeah. As we coming back. 1 gallon down. Almost to 1/4 of a gallon of water. Yay, me. But yeah. Going into, I had some of that stuff I wanted to add to that inner voice. The process of getting to that inner voice and doing that inner child work is so important. And I'm gonna say it. I've said it. I'm gonna say it over and over and over again. If you need that assistance in getting to that space, you need a space to be able to have that environment where it's confidential, where you can allow your inner child to explore and learn how to build that space. Hit me up. You gotta call alchemistllc.com, because that's the only way you're gonna get to your true potential. When we think about the aspects of your true potential and how you will never reach your true potential putting off the work. This is real shit. You will never reach your true potential putting off the work. What you will reach in putting off the work is distraction after distraction after distraction after distraction after distraction. You will give power to all of the distractions that are within that scape of space that are on that frequency. I say that because I look at everybody is right now focused on the vaccine. They trying to kill us. I'm not taking the damn vaccine. Simple and plain. But they said they don't give you jail time. Okay. It's not even in my mind. Even if it boiled down for, like, I gotta go get this fucking shit. They forced me to, if they forced it to happen. I know the herbs, and I know all the herbs to push that shit out of my body. Or I can go take it and that shit bleed out, that shit filters itself out of my body naturally just by the time I even get to the house. So what am I really worried about? My true potential for all things to happen. Your true potential is based upon your gratefulness and your being grateful and thankful for everything that can happen. That's where your true potential lies. So until you're able to accept the inner monologue, you have the inner monologue with yourself, to find that love in you, find that love that you lost, you'll never find your potential. I remember having the jobs. I remember riding around in my Navigator like you couldn't tell me shit. I remember riding around in my 300, you couldn't tell me shit. I remember riding around in certain shit, you couldn't tell me anything. Because I was like, yeah, I made it. But let me tell you something about your true potential. Your true potential can grow. Anything else with that cannot grow. The true potential, so that true potential, the true potential of a true relationship potential can always grow and thrive. Because it's based on emotional maturity and mental maturity. And the willing to learn these aspects of yourself. Every job that I got, every job that you get has a limitation. You only can go so far. And even in going to the furthest point into it, you'll always be under something. You will always be codependent upon something. You will never truly be self-sufficient. Because even if you do have this stream of this illusionary projected independence, you still now need something under you to be dependent upon you. Now you have a superiority complex. Because now you feel like since you're doing this list of things over here, and this now it gives you the ability to not deal with this other list of things that are on the other side of that coin. I remember being in that space. That space is not fucking cool. That space does more harm than good. Because now you stuck in this illusionary state where you got to keep the pulses from the urges in your life to keep your shit going. So now I always have to, in order for me to work hard at my job, I always had to be in a state where I was broke or I had to pay something. So now, even when I got myself together in this unconscious state, for fear of being alone, I had that mentality, I'm going to bring people with me. I'm going to bring my mom. I'm going to bring my sister. I'm going to bring family members with me. I'm going to bring them with me. Which is okay. Yeah. But they got to do the work. That's going to always be the key. And that's what's always going to fall back to. They got to have to do the work. They're going to have to show that they're going to have to show their work. In order for you to reach your true potential, you have to show your work. Your work is for your potential. Your work builds your worth and then your trust in the process of your true potential. There is no plan B for your true potential. Because in that space is no limitations. Anything outside of that. This is where when we go to that original set point based on the monologue that was created, based on our inner voice, based on that love that we lost of ourselves, this is where you start creating. Most people are creating from that set point. So anything that challenges that point or exceeds the barriers or the boundaries of that point, they cannot see. While some people think, I'm good like this. If I'm looking over a wall every morning, every time that I rise, I look over a wall. And it's at a height to where I can't see fully over it. Guess what happens to the sun? I'll always think I have the horizon. I'll always think that the sun is just rising. I'll always think that I'm in a position where I'm always chasing the horizon. I remember chasing the horizon. Chasing the horizons. Chasing the horizons. You chase the horizon of that race for that job. You chase the horizon for the hopes that relationship works. You chase the horizon, the hope that friend gets their shit together. You chase this horizon. What you're chasing is the glamour of the potential, your projected potential on other individuals. So you're saying to yourself, if they do this, and then this is where it gets very twisted, because now in your state of the fear of being alone or the fear of abandonment, now you put yourself in a position where you'll literally allow a person to be in this position, and what they actually are is a crutch. They are your emotional crutch. So now you're overly dependent on them to be the emotional standard, to accept your emotional imbalance or standard. Since you have a lack of boundaries for yourself, now you have a lack of boundary for them. You have a lack of boundaries for them. This is when we talk about the aspects of immature love. With immature love, we go into that aspect of, when we think about the aspects of immature love, it's always this ride or die mentality. It's always a ride or die mentality. As I pull up the script for that part, my notes for that part, it's always this ride or die mentality. I want nobody to ride and die for me. I'm gonna put it like this. Immature people falling in love destroy each other's freedom. You create a bondage. You make it a prison. A mature person in love help each other be free. They help each other to destroy all the sorts of these bondages. And when love flows with freedom, there's beauty. When love flows in its truest aspect, is beauty. There's no dependence. You feel me? When you have a dependency on somebody for some reason, shape, or other form, whether it's for physical, whether you want them to ride your face, ride you real good, suck you off real good, eat your groceries and whatever in that space. Think about the dependency it becomes in that. Because now through that's the only way that you've ever experienced love. Where was your inner child hurt at first? These are the questions that I will ask you. Where was your inner child hurt, and how was your inner child hurt? Because the way that you're viewing the now, remember, the way that you're viewing the now is based off the monologue of the inner child, of the inner self. So your potential in the now Your potential to be cultivated in the now is now going to be set by those set points based on that monologue. So if I'm not having a conversation with myself, how do I expect anybody to understand the conversation I have now? How can I accept anybody speaking to me the way that I need to be spoken to if I'm not speaking to myself that way? How can I expect somebody to give me how can I accept the love of somebody given to me if I have not first put the love into myself? See, this causes those vexes and jades. Because you're used to doing something, you've been doing something for so long that when you reach that point of somebody that doesn't need those things or doesn't have a need or a want or doesn't have that aspect, this is your karmic relationship when you meet the big boss of your life. Of, all right, cool. You didn't want to take your challenge. All right, cool. Here's your challenges now. That's when the universe brings it to you. Ask for change long enough, it's gonna come. Universe, I just need a change in my life. I just need my life to get better and all of these things. Ancestors, guess what they're gonna bring you? They're gonna bring you everything that's gonna break you first. Why? Because they have to break that mirror. They have to break that image that you're going to try to, because if you do not break this old image, if you don't break that old image, you can't take new potential. There's some of y'all out here right now that have the potential to be fucking great, but you stuck in time rifts. You stuck in the aspect of time. You stuck in the aspect of what people, who's going to listen to me, who's going to love me. This is one big thing for a lot of people when it comes to potential staying in relationships for too fucking long. Staying at a job for too long. You've been at that job so long that it's not your experience that you're worried about. It's what other jobs are going to put up with. That's the reality of it. In the job, that's synonymous with relationships and everything that you do. It's not the experience based on the title that you've accepted. It's everything that's in the inside, that inner work, that if you go into a new space, you got to build up a whole new barrier, whole new parameters to go into that space. It's time to stop hiding. I put it like this. I'm 35. I'll be 27 forever. Because I stopped the aging process. Literally. If, let's say 5 years from now, that means I'll be in my 40s. Put it like that. If I didn't start doing the podcast, if I didn't start doing Friday night lectures, if I didn't start my company today, if I didn't start my company, in 5 years, I will be 40. 5 years, I'm 27 now. In the mindset of freezing time, I'm 27. So, being 27, add 5 years, I'll be 32. So, we can look at it from both from both parallel points. Regardless of what I do, what I accept, what I don't accept, those 5 years in this context are still going to go pass by. So now instead of being at this point doing what I'm doing, I'll have to, now I gotta wait now 5 years. That means I went 5 more years being undisciplined. Can you go 5 more years without being undisciplined? Really think about that. Especially with the state of America. This is America. Especially with the state of how everything is around you right now. You think you can go another 5 years being undisciplined? Because that's a result of what's around you. If your environment is undisciplined, it means you're undisciplined. If you feel tired in your space, because your space isn't. If you're in a space of discipline, if you're in a space of discipline and you're not adhering to adapting the definitions and the aspects of those disciplines into your own space, what you're doing, you're always going to be tired. You're always going to be overwhelmed. You're always going to be upset. You're always going to be something over. You're always going to be overly something. Or on the other end of that, you're always going to be underly something. So then it leads into you're always going to feel the urge to need to be under something. This is how deep it gets when you talk about your true potential. Since you have not reached your true potential, and now you're in that state, since you haven't reached your true potential, or you have a fear of reaching your true potential, what most people usually do when they have a fear of reaching their true potential, what most people actually do, which is crazy to me, as I'm going through swiping through my notes, swipe. Oh, I went the wrong way. As I'm going through my notes, let me go back up here. What most people do, they find themselves always trying to be under another person, to depend on them to depend on their energy to leapfrog. So now when you think about this, look at your space, look at your relationships. This is when you start reflecting on your relationships to see what their potential is. Remember, you're not trying to make any relationship work. You're allowing the relationship to do the work that it needs to be done. Every relationship, everything around you is meant to teach you something. So instead of you sitting there trying to make that relationship work, look at what it's teaching you. It's teaching you something. Silence is not going to heal it. Be real with you. Silence is not going to heal it. Being overly emotional and overreacting to situations is not going to heal it. That's not going to lead you to your true potential. That's going to lead you to that's going to lead you to your downfall. Why? Because your little child has not learned the aspects of what pride is. So your inner child is taking pride on coloring all over that fucking wall. And then when you get checked on for coloring all over the fucking wall, now you want to blame everybody else. They want to stop my shine. They want to stop me from being me. They want to stop me from being great. No. They're helping you learn how to check yourself. Be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. That's the only way you reach. Limitations are built by the lack of trust. Limitations are built by your lack of trust in yourself. So if you don't trust yourself to be able to succeed in something, guess what? You're going to create the limitation. And now that you created the limitation nucleus, now you got to create the atom or the outer specs to this core. And then everything that floats around it is in that same position, feeding from that same thought process. This is why when they say, if you hang around 5 millionaires, you will be the 6th. But it requires the work. If you hang around 5 dumbasses, you'll be the 6th. That don't require no work. It requires work on both ends. Because hanging around 5 people that do not intellectually challenge you, or challenge you to get your emotions in order, or challenge you to get yourself in order, you never gonna grow. So you're gonna work that mindset of, I only need to do this much to get this. I only need to do this much right here to get this. That's all I need to do. All I gotta do is show up. Because if I show up and I do a little bit of this and that right here, even if I don't do it, eventually how this space was created, the space that was created for me to be in, to be able to pull in, is always going to revert back to the original concept in a different way. This is when you think about these relationships where it's cool that you can sit at the house all day, but after a while, it's like, what did you do all day while you were at the house? in reality to what you were doing. This goes for shorties and this goes for the brothers. This goes for the shorties and the brothers. Period. You think that you're going to be able to just sit at the house all day and do no type of work? And you think that's acceptable? You didn't learn anything? This is when we come into this space of being afraid not to ask for shit. That comes from a wounded aspect on positive and negative. Remember, we on that. This is when you get stuck in that polarity. Because in that same space, because you claim your independence, that guilt wound that's still there, you feel sorry or bad for asking for anything. But then when it boils over, you now use that same guilt to manipulate the space. I do this, and this. Okay. Nah, you don't understand, baby. I'll be doing this. I made some chicken sandwiches. Congratulations, nigga. You turned the oven on. You did the bare minimum to survive. We have to get out of this We got to get out of this composition of thought that's based on doing just enough to survive. The magic don't work until you put in the work. I'll use an example. I set my altar up this week for the aspect of work, increasing the aspect of my works, the energy of my works, harnessing and giving myself a focal point for my works. That was the intention that I set with the altar this week. I always set something different for the altar every week. So I set that to the altar. I sat that there. I usually do it on Friday. Powerful lecture through the energy that's getting transmuted through that. Saturday, I sat here and I dropped some new prints and new designs through my store. Created the ads and was posting the ads and everything. Posting the ads on the readings from readings in my services. Plastering my social media, blasting groups, doing all this aspect. That's my work. My intention was set in my power. My attention is to the detail of my work. That's how I raise my frequency into my true potential. I have no limitations. I can sit here until 4 a.m. doing the work. But if I'm up till 4 a.m., I already know that my work is going to be the best work. Because if not, why would I put that much time in? This is not based on expectation. This is based on me accepting the task at hand. When you're going into your true potential, it's accepting that task at hand. Your true potential may be moving away from a situation that you're in, leaving that job, leaving that state where you at, your hometown, putting your voice and putting your likeness and putting your thoughts in front of other individuals that can challenge that thought. That's one of the major keys. You have to put yourself in front of individuals that are going to challenge that thought, but not in a way that's not going to give you the challenge to grow. I don't want anybody around me that's not challenging me to grow in aspects of where I'm already going, in aspects that I can go. I have no limits. This is when you have to check that. This is when you check in that inner voice. Checking that inner voice is the most important part. Really having that conversation with yourself. But first, go to the God thought and listen to the, repeat that to yourself. The beginning part. The first, I would like to apologize. Say that shit to yourself for about a week. After a week, once you start breaking down, if you really put the intention in, after you start breaking down, then come see me. We got some work to do. You want great potential? You got some work to do. You want to expand past where you go want to expand past the limits that you put on yourself from old set points? You got some work to do. Don't be afraid of the work. Embrace it. Embrace that pain, because that's going to embrace that pain, because that's going to invoke the change for you to be able to invest in your evolution. Invest in your elevation. I want you to be fucking great. I want you to be the fucking best. That's all I desire. I desire you to be the fucking best. I will support you in every way possible if you want to grow. And I will support your decision to want to stay toxic. You wanting to grow? That's elevation. Let's do it. You want to stay in that space of stay in them toxic cues of yourself? That requires my separation. I want you to be the best. Yeah. That's where your true potential lies. But before we finish this out, let's get into this plug talk. Got a special treat in the plug talk if you're listening to it. And let's just embrace the day for what the fuck it is. An empty palette, ready for us to stroke our genius on. I love you. Thank you for choosing the God Hour. Get back to you after this. Peace.
We gotta save our life. We gotta take over. We gotta heal. Welcome to the plug talk. Speaking of keeping y'all plugged in with everything new, got some nice new things. First off, I wanna get everybody to special. Occult Alchemy, myshopify.com. It will be in the description of this. Occult Alchemy, myshopify.com. New arrivals from the tapestry. I released new tapestries. I released new hoodies. Released some of the new gear, new shoes, and whatever. Put that out there. I tell you, I've been working on that. Wanted to get that out there right just before this holiday season. If you're listening to this episode on 2 days, being the only day that matters, there's a special code. 20/20. The number 20, the /20. 20/20 discount code, 20% off for purchases of $20 or more. So go in there, hit Occult Alchemy. I want to give y'all something. I want to give everybody something. I'm always in that giving state, because we give to reciprocate that energy, put it back. But Occult Alchemy, myshopify.com, go check that out. And of course, GOD@occultalchemistllc.com. Yes, the God of me has GOD@occultalchemistllc.com. Go ahead and book a reading, book a consultation. Any of the readings can be turned into consultations, or can be led into a consultation, and we build from there during the reading. But yeah, the first thing you gotta do, I love everybody asking me for information, hitting up the inboxes, sending me aspects of information. Set up a consultation. Set that consultation up, and I already guarantee you it's gonna be the best hour and some change that's gonna help you tap into what you need to tap into and get you where you need to get to. GOD@occultalchemistllc.com. And of course, I appreciate the support. Become a monthly patron. You can hit GOD@occultalchemist/anchor support. Everything will be in the description. But yeah, hit me up on that. Become a monthly patron. Or if you are interested in, since we're doing more live, season 4 is more live events, more live aspects. So if you want to do a build, hit me up at setcallanidis@gmail.com.
Leave me information. We start building a dialogue from there. Become a co-host. We're going to do that building like that, live, pre-record. Stay tuned for all that information. Also, you can always get me at 910-777-7708, because all we're doing is building over here. G.O.D Alkhemist LLC is the brand, is what we're doing over there. What else? Speaking of, last week we got into, on the G.O.D Alkhemist, my YouTube channel, last week we got into the aspects of our I just love the energy right now. We're in a good space right now. This is a very deep lecture. This is a very deep topic that we need to get into. We need to get deeper, more into it. Last week we got into the aspects of apoptosis, understanding what necrosis is, and then control cell death, killing off aspects of ourselves by understanding these DNA sequences. Y'all stay tuned for what we're going to do this Friday. But I want you to be the best. I want you to grow. I want you to be the fucking best. And the only way to be the fucking best is to be honest with yourself. If you need that help, if this resonated with you, GODACOAlchemistLLC.com. If you want to show your support, Elusive Assignments Cash App link. You can become a monthly patron. If you have a product or a service, or you want to do a bill, setcallonitas@gmail.com. Hit the number 910-777-7708. If you want to support, hit up Occult Alchemy, code 2020, 20/20, 20% off of any purchase of $20 or more. There's no excuse for you to get to where you need to get to. Few of us are going to make it. Even fewer are going to answer the call. Let's be the ones to take it to the next level. Stay tuned for the closeout.
We're at an end. No, this ain't no end. There's no such thing as ending, only beginnings. The only things that end are the things that no longer serve us any purpose. The only things that are going to end are the things that no longer serve us a purpose, and they're based upon the lack of discipline that we did not have in our lives. That's what we're looking at when we're going forward. That monologue of the inner child is the most important monologue of it all, because that helps us understand the past, to develop the future, develop the present, to set no limitations to our future. I want you to be the fucking best. I forgot to say it in the plug talk, but I'm doing it, Healing the Inner Child reading via inbox on Papa Lucy Lucy 666 on my IG, and Rod Colonies on my Facebook. The price is $44.44. It's a nice bill. After we do that, we go into the aspects of the inner child healing with the counseling to that aspect, so we connect that to that, and we build from there. I want you to be the fucking best. The only way to be the best is to listen to yourself. And I don't mean listen to yourself to get the right and wrong answer, or to get something to agree with you. I want you to disagree with yourself. That is the main key that it comes to when you actually doing this fucking work, is disagreeing with yourself. You want to be able to disagree. Stop trying to be friends and keep these bonds outside of you for the fear of really becoming intimately in tune with your inner child. Because this, in that space, that into me that you're going to see, into me that I see, the journey to your inner child, what you're going to unlock is that intimate power that it can be used to cultivate and create everything that you've ever desired. But you got to do this work first. You can't dream and imagine a world of no limits
if the limits reside inside you. You cannot dream of a world with no limitations if you live with the limitations inside of you. That's a big one for that. Like, living with those inside of you and allowing those to fester and allowing those to create the elixirs and attach to these aspects of you. This is why when you thinking your ancestors is mad at you, why are you upset with yourself? When you think that they feeling what they feel, when you think other motherfuckers are feeling what they feeling, and then you thinking it's because of you, now you stuck in which wound is that bringing up? This is the healing process. This is just a sample. This is just a taste of getting into that. That's what we do every single week, is get into this. Whether it's your first time in, or whether it's your first time in listening, or you've been rocking with me since the beginning of this. This is a reflection of that growth. Allow it to resonate with you. Allow it to open you up to achieve everything that you are meant to have. Everything that you are meant to connect to. The party ain't over. You listen to this today, today being that only day. You know, tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the God Hour Show, live via Facebook. Drop the topic, live readings, and we gonna party from there. Until then, I love you. We love us. Let's embrace that ashe, man. Ashe.